Yesterday, I did a video on how to review your year. It's part of a full series that I'm doing to prep for 2024 planning. And so every day this week, I'm posting a video related to reviewing your year, and this will culminate in one last video on how to plan your year for 2024. Just a note, I posted a video last year on how to plan your year for 2023, and I'm gonna post an update to that at the end of this week. This will be a whole series, and there will be a link to the playlist, and you can watch the videos that you've missed, or you can watch all of the videos if you're catching this weeks later, a month later, whenever, it will be here. Okay, before we get into this, I just want to quickly introduce myself. My name is Libria Jones. I am a life-work balance advocate. I switched up the equation because the living part comes first, friends. I share a lot of content about how you can design a life that you love by traveling, taking workations, working remotely. And I also have been a project manager for a very long time, and I'm kind of a productivity geek. And so sometimes I share videos about productivity and planning, and I plan to lean into that a little bit more in 2024. So stay tuned for that. In the last video, I shared 7 steps to review your year. And in this video, I'm gonna pull back the curtain on my own goals and my own year-end review. And in this video, I'm gonna review my goals in finance and health categories. So let's get into it. So I actually plan and track goals for the year across 6 categories: finance, health, career and business, development, lifestyle, and relationships. Those are the 6 categories that I like to track and manage things through. And some people like to add a 7th category for spirituality or religion. But let's get into my review. Y'all about to get in my business. Let's get into my business, why not? Okay, so I'm gonna pull my phone up because I actually have my goals list. I shared a mid-year review of my goals on my Instagram stories back in June. And so I'm gonna pull those up. If you want to follow me on Instagram, you can. I'm at Libria Jones on Instagram. I wanna say that finances and health are the areas that over the years I've struggled with the most, and are the areas that I most strongly want to address. Like, these are kind of some major key areas of my life that are super, super important to me. One, because from a financial perspective, I'm 45. Like, I don't want to work for the rest of my life. I need to be able to take care of myself and my daughter, as I get older. And I want to feel financially comfortable. And then from a health perspective, same thing. I'm getting older. I'm 45 years old. I feel like I end up having conversations with my 80-year-old self a lot lately. Like, girl, you need to get it together because I gotta take care of her. She's like, Libria, you need to be looking out for me. And so I'm trying my best to look out for 80-year-old Libria and really tackle some of the finance and health goals that I have. But these are the areas that I struggle in the most and the areas that I work hardest to address, I'll be honest. And what I appreciate about myself, and maybe you feel this way too, is that even though I may fail to hit some goals, I celebrate the progress, and I love that I'm always making progress. And I don't mind dusting myself off and starting over or picking back up where I left off, because this is something that I just will never give up on. I will never give up on myself, especially as it relates to getting my finances together and getting my health together. And from a financial perspective, I'm so far from where I was 5 years ago, 10 years ago, and definitely 20 years ago. My 20s was a wreck, okay? I'm still cleaning up that mess. But let's get into my financial goals. So here's what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna tell you what my financial goals were, and then I'm going to tell you if I reached them. As a caveat to this, and I shared this in my How to Plan Your Year video, I shared this close to the end, I am team doing the most. And so quite often I might set a lot more goals than I probably should for myself. And I'm okay with that because I don't get discouraged if I don't check every box. What I love is that as I set goals, I'm trying to be intentional about these are things that are at the forefront of my mind. And so I'm pushing forward on those. And so even if I don't check the box at the end of the year, again, I'm happy I made progress on it. So these were the financial goals that I set for myself this year. One was maxing out 401k contributions. The maximum contribution that you can make as an individual to your 401k in 2023 is $22,500. This is something that I've strived to do throughout my career. I will say this, I have always at least contributed to my 401k the minimum amount to get the match from my employer because I ain't giving away free money. Your employer matches your 401k contributions and you are not making any 401k contributions, you are leaving money on the table, free money on the table. That said, I typically contribute at least whatever I need to contribute to get the most from my employer. I hope that made sense. I have always done that throughout my career, but I have never maxed out my 401k. This was the first year I actually sat down and said, you know what? I should max out my 401k. I haven't done it previously because it seems intimidating. I will tell you, I know a lot of people talk about scarcity mindset, and I grew up in a trailer. When I first had my daughter, I was on food stamps and WIC, and I had moved back into that trailer that I grew up in, and me and my daughter were sharing a twin bed. And so there is part of me that is surprised when I realize what I am able to do with my money. Because the idea of taking $23,000, which amounts to about $930 out of my check every pay period is wild. Like, I'm just gonna take $900 out of my paycheck every pay period and put it somewhere that I can't touch it. That sounds scary and intimidating to me. But this year I was like, I can easily do that. I can max out my 401k. Why aren't I doing this? Why haven't I been doing this? And so I made that one of my goals. My second goal was to save 6 months of my living expenses. A lot of people like to call this an emergency fund in case an emergency happens. I, earlier this year, changed that to sabbatical fund. Start investing. And I left that open-ended. I didn't say how much I needed to invest or anything like that. I just said I wanted to start investing. I said I wanted to pay off loans, pay off my credit cards, get tenants in my property, and buy a duplex. Those were my goals for 2023. That were my financial goals. All right, let me share with you what my health goals were for the year. So my health goals were pretty straightforward, and they were all pretty much physical goals. One was move my body 5 days a week. Another was eat healthy 80% of the time. And the last one was finish my dental work. So those were my finance goals and my health goals. Let me just tell you a little bit about the type of data that I have for my financial goals. One, I have my 401k statement. So, I can log into my 401k at any time. Of course, I've got savings accounts. I have 2 high yield savings accounts, which is important, especially right now. Interest rates are up, which sucks if you're trying to buy something, but it's actually really good if you're trying to save. Interest rates have not been this high in years, guys, years. And so if you don't have a high yield savings account, please, friend, go get you one. Go get you a high yield savings account. I have 2. One is with Ally Bank. I believe that interest rate is 4.25% or 4.15% right now as of the taping of this video. And then I said taping, that was old school, as in the recording of this video, And then I bank with SoFi as well. I love this bank. I talk about it all the time. Their interest rate is 4.5%. And I have gotten rate hikes almost every other month this year. So this rate keeps shooting up. I'm looking forward to another rate hike. But I love the interest rate on my SoFi account. And what I love about both of these accounts is you don't have to do anything except have direct deposit in order to get those rates. There are often times where you see high yield savings accounts that they require you to have a minimum balance. They don't allow you to have more than a certain number of withdrawals per year. They put these stipulations on you in order to take advantage of their high rates, their high interest rates. These 2 banks, none of that is the case. Doesn't matter what your balance is, doesn't matter what your open balance is, doesn't matter what your average daily balance is. You getting these rates, friend. All you gotta do for SoFi is have a checking account with direct deposit and you can get the high yield savings rate. And I'm gonna drop a link to SoFi in the description box so you can check them out. If you sign up with that link, I think you get like a $25 or $50 bonus in your account. And depending on your direct deposit amount, you could also get $200, $250, or $300 also added to your account. Check it out in the comments. Anyway, back to my goals. That's the information I have about my savings. So I think it's important to look at the savings balance, but I also think it's important to look at the savings statements as well. In this case, my bank shows how much money I put in each month into my savings account. And so I can really kind of compare that number to my current amount, those numbers to my current amount to see what I took out. I think it's easy to say, well, did I hit the goal or not? You can just look at the balance and say that. But I think it's important not just to look at the balance on your savings accounts. It's important to also look at your statement so you can see the activity. You can see when you took money out, when you put money in, and get an idea of what was really going on. Why did you take money out of your savings account? And decide on whether or not that was a reasonable reason, right? Was this what savings is for? Because my car broke down, or I had to fix something on the house, or I had to go to family homecoming, so I had to get a couple dollars so I can get me some outfits. You know what I'm saying? You need to look at those kind of things. So that's the information I have. Paying off loans. One of the things that I'm looking at as far as paying off loans is, of course, the balance, but I'm also really getting into the amortization table, the amortization schedule. So when you look at your loan payments and your payment history, you can see for every payment, how much of that payment went to principal versus how much of that payment went to interest. If it went to principal, it's actually paying down the loan. If it went to interest, you just paying them back for letting you borrow money. Like that didn't benefit you at all. I like to look at interest payments as a donation. I basically donated to somebody. When you're gathering this information, or when I'm gathering this information, I'm going a level deeper than just like what's on the balance number. I'm actually kind of looking at what kind of decisions am I making when I'm managing my savings account, or when I'm talking about paying down a loan, but I'm only paying the required amount, right? So what decision am I really making? So that's kind of the information that I want to look at and gather. Same thing with my credit cards. So I can look at my credit card statement and see, is my credit card paid off? Yes or no? That's easy. But I can also see, what payments have I been making on my credit card? Am I paying the minimum balance? Have I paid a lump sum? Did I already pay it off and now I'm still using it and having to pay it off again? Right? So don't just look at that top number, the balance. Like I can just log into my credit card account and see whether or not I paid it off. But I'm more interested in, not only did I hit this goal, but like, what was my behavior throughout the year that either helped me reach that goal or made me miss that goal? That was step one from my previous video. So that's the data that I'm gathering to look at my financial goals. Now let's talk about whether or not I hit these goals. What y'all think? What y'all think? Did I do it? Let's talk about it. I'm gonna talk about what goals I hit, what goals I missed, and what was my gap in between the goals that I missed, okay? So max out my 401k contributions. Guess what? Your girl did it. I maxed out my 401k contributions for the first time in my entire career. And there's like this mean voice in the back of my head that wants to be embarrassed that this is the first time that I've ever done that at 45. But you know what? Forget her. I am proud of myself. I, a girl who grew up in a trailer, who is the first college graduate in my family, who has had struggles and challenges with finances for a long time, and I'm trying to undo 30 years of bad habits. I maxed out my 401k contributions for the first time in my career, and I'm very, very proud of myself. Woo! Saved 6 months in my sabbatical fund. I did not do that. I got pretty close. I didn't get pretty close. That's a lie. I actually got to 43% of this goal. So pretty close to half. That includes me being paid one more time. I get paid this week. So I got to 43%, which quite frankly is closer than I've ever been. But when I look at my behaviors over time, and that's part of the gap assessment. So the gap assessment is understanding how far you are away, right? So if I got to 43%, I am 57% away from there. Straightforward, but that's not enough information, right? The other parts of that information is, well, what were the behaviors that caused that gap? Was it that I didn't save enough? Was it that I was taking too much money out? And when I look at the information, I look at the data, I was taking too much money out. At the beginning of this year, I withdrew from my savings account every single month. Every single month at the beginning of this year, and especially around my move. So March, April, I was withdrawing a lot of money from my savings account. And then the summertime are my most expensive months. So July, August, and September are my most expensive months of the year. Q3 be wiping me out. Part of the reason is because it's summertime, we outside, okay? Also, the most important birthdays to me are during that time frame. My mother's birthday's in July, my daughter's birthday's in August, My birthday is in September. It happens to be a very expensive quarter, and I end up overspending during that quarter. And so I end up taking money out of savings as well. And so not just looking at the number gap, there's a 57% gap from where my goal is and where I am, but there's also a gap in my behavior, right? So one of those behaviors is making sure I'm not taking money out of my savings account, and then planning for things like, if I know Q3 is my most expensive month, why don't I create a savings bucket to store away some extra money so that I know I will have it available to me when Q3 comes around. So one of the things I did to adjust for that for next year, I created a Summer Splurge 2024 savings bucket, or sinking fund as some people would refer to it as. And so now I'm funneling some savings into that fund so that I can actually have money available to cover my summer splurge that is separate and distinct and apart from my sabbatical fund, and that does not decrease what's going into my sabbatical fund as well. So I'm now saying, well, you know what? Some of this discretionary spending I can go ahead and store away for what I know is going to happen in Q3. All right, and then we have start investing. Checkbox, I actually did start investing. So technically my 401k is me investing. So your 401k dollars are invested. So technically I started investing with my 401k, but that's not what I meant when I set this goal. My goal was to actually literally start investing in either the stock market or mutual funds or REITs or something like that. And one of the things that was blocking me from doing that is feeling like I had to have a lot of money in order to invest. And you guys remember during the pandemic, everybody jumped on the Robinhood train, right? We all downloaded Robinhood and started investing $20 here, $50 there, things like that, which really unlocked for me the idea that I didn't need to invest thousands of dollars every month. And so I went to Ally, which again is my savings account, and also SoFi does this as well. I opened two. I opened an account with Ally and an account with SoFi that was an ETF account. Now, I'm not going to go into a whole lot of detail about what ETFs are. I will post a link to a resource for what ETFs are. In general, they are exchange traded funds where you can invest in not one stock, but a package or a portfolio of stocks. It's kind of like having a hedge fund manager working for you, right? And so you can invest in ETFs that follow an index like the S&P 500. And that way you're basically following the market. And so at some point I opened up an ETF. One of them I put $50 in, the other I put $100 in every month, and was like, boom, I started investing, check the box. Because again, sometimes we don't do things because the hurdle is, it's gotta be so big, like it's gotta be thousands of dollars, right? I need to do this when I have $1,000 to put away. You know, I can put $50 away a month. I can do that. I can absolutely do that. So that is what I did, box checked. Go me, go me. Pay off loans. So there were 2 loans that I came into the year with. And I want to clarify this. When I say pay off loans, I mean personal loans, like small personal loans that you might take out. I have no intention of paying off my car loan right now. And let me tell you why. My car loan rate is 4.2%. I am earning more than that on my savings account. And so there's no need to take the cash and put it towards paying off this debt when I can earn more on that cash in a savings account. Does that make sense? That was not part of my goal when I came into this year, okay? Just to be clear, I was really just talking about my high interest personal loans. I wasn't talking about my mortgage, wasn't talking about my student loan. I'm still waiting for Biden to just make that thing disappear, child. What are you doing, Biden? Where's my loan forgiveness? I came into this year actually hoping I could pay off my student loan because I was hoping half of it would be forgiven, but that's neither here nor there. We are talking about high interest personal loans, and I had 2 of those when I came into the year, and my goal was to pay them off. Did I do it? Well, I have paid them down. So I'll say this. Remember I said earlier that one of the things that I started looking at, the data that I started looking at, was my payment history and my payment schedule to see how much was going to interest and how much was actually going to paying the loan down. Well, I realized on both of those loans, because the interest is so high, so much of the payment that I was making was going towards interest. Like, let's say the payment's $380. I'm just kind of make up an example. Let's say the payment is $380. 75 of that is going to my principal. Other $305 is going to interest every month. What? Now that's an extreme example, but that's how it felt. I'm gonna be honest, that is how it felt. One loan I've just continued to pay down based on my payment amount, which means a lot of my payment is going to interest and not principal. But another loan, I end up paying half of it off. So I got a lump sum of money and I paid half of it off. And so now my payments, here's what they do when you do this. Let me tell you right quick what they do. So I think the loan balance was $3,500. So I paid $1,700 of it off. And what they do is they say, oh, well, you don't have a loan payment until next year. Nah, boo. I'm gonna keep on paying this thing on down because now I've flipped the equation. Now 305 of my payment goes to principal and 75 goes to interest, okay? So it's important for you to kind of really look at those things and get clear on the decisions that you are making. On the other loan, I'm still getting taken to the, what do you call it? I don't know the phrase. Is it taken to the cleaners? That's it. I'm still getting taken to the cleaners on the other loan, but I have made that conscious decision with the information that I have, but I'm also still planning to pay that loan off early. But I just want you to have the information, right? I'm making that conscious decision because the other loan is a higher interest rate. And so I am trying to pay that loan off faster. That was a long way to say, girl, you did not hit that goal. You did not hit the goal, but the gap assessment says that one of those loans I will pay off by the end of this year. And the other loan I plan to pay off by the end of Q1 of next year. Actually, I'm planning to use my bonus in January to pay that loan off completely. But I'm giving myself to the end of Q1 just in case something comes up. Pay off credit cards. I have, don't judge me. Actually, judge me if you want to, I don't care. I have 5 credit cards. And I got these credit cards with the expectation that I was gonna play the points game, right? I'm gonna use the card, play the points game, pay it off. I can't be trusted with a credit card, y'all. I was like, oh, I can just borrow this money? Okay, cool. My credit card interest rates are so high. They're very high. So it's a dangerous game. Like playing the points game is cool and you'll see people all over Instagram, all over YouTube, all over Facebook talking about how they flew for free and they stayed in this place for free using credit cards. And some of these people have 10, 12, 15 credit cards. You even see people here on YouTube talking about how to build a business with credit cards. And while I am not disputing that any of those things are possible or reasonable, you also have to know yourself. Know thyself. And I went into this knowing myself, but also thinking, oh, I can change. Anyway, so all that to say, I did not pay off all of my credit cards, all 5 of my credit cards this year. I actually paid off one of them several times and then kept using it. Yep. But as of today, as of right now, as at the end of this year, I have paid off 2 of the 5 and another one, and the others I've paid down significantly. So my utilization is dropping and dropping and dropping. I think one of them, my utilization has gone down to 70. Another one, the utilization has gone down to 60. And one of them, my utilization is at around 80. So I am paying down my cards. I've paid off 2 of my cards as of today and am in progress of paying off the other ones. But again, it's really about getting clear about the activities and your behaviors. So my gap assessment isn't just about the fact that I know I've paid off 2 of 5. Here's my gap assessment from a behavior perspective. I need to not wait until the statement date to pay down my card. So one of the things that I do is before my statement closes, I try to make sure that I pay enough that my card balance is at least $200 lower than my last statement, because that's what's getting reported to the credit bureaus. I want to make sure that my card balance is $200 lower than my last statement at the very least. If I'm not going to pay it off, I'm definitely not paying the minimum, because the minimum is a lot of time. The minimum payment due can still hurt you, especially if you spent more, especially if your balance is over what it was last statement period, because it's showing your utilization is steadily going up, right? So if you're still using it, then your utilization is going up. And so I do not pay the minimum payment. My payment amount is always whatever gets me back to the last statement balance minus $200. But I was doing that once a month. I was doing that like a day before my statement was closing, right? Or whenever my payment was due. And so I realized that my actual behaviors were not always consistent. Sometimes I was like, I'll just pay the minimum. And so that was impacting my credit score negatively. And of course, now I'm being charged interest on those additional purchases. And so one of the things that clicked for me just a few weeks ago was I should just pay down anything that I used on my credit card over the weekend on Mondays, or over the last week on Mondays. So now, and this is, I'm saying now, but this is like a new practice for me. Now, one of the things that I've started doing is paying my credit card on Mondays. So now it's starting to be like you're treating all of your credit cards as a charge card or as a debit card, where I'm not using my card if I don't have the cash to cover it. And I need the cash to cover it immediately, like now. Because again, I can't really be trusted to wait a whole month and then pay it. Because during that month, I'm like, oh, I got cash? I'm gonna use it for something else. Hope that wasn't confusing, but trying to pay my cards on Mondays based on this gap assessment. Because again, I'm not just looking at the balance, I'm looking at the behavior as well. The next two are super easy, okay? Get tenants in my property. Boop, did it. Y'all, I gotta drink some wine on this one. Ooh. This was a big one. So I bought my property in Tulsa in June of 2021 with the full expectation that within 3 to 6 months I would rent it out and get another property, because I want to be a real estate investor. I want to build a real estate portfolio. Well, your girl got comfortable, child, and a year and a half later I hadn't done anything. And so I put it on my list going into 2023 to be intentional about getting renters in there, even if I didn't have anywhere to stay. I was like, look, you said that you wanted to lean into real estate investing, and here you are not doing any of those things. And so I said, my plan was by the end of Q1, I wanted to have tenants. By the end of Q1 2023, I wanted to have tenants in my house. And it didn't matter where I was going after that. I was like, I can travel, I can house sit. Worst case scenario, I can go back and stay with my parents. I could leave the country, whatever. I can do whatever I want. But if I'm serious about this goal, my actions don't match what I'm saying, right? I talked about this in the last video. You need to get clear. Do your actions match your desired outcome or your goal? And if they don't, you have to ask yourself, is this really a goal of mine? Or what do I need to do? And so I decided to take what I would consider radical action. I'm telling you, my friends thought I was crazy. My friends were like, I'm concerned about you. You're not gonna know where you living? Like, what are you doing? And I was like, guys, keep in mind, I'm gainfully employed. I traveled the world for a whole year. I have options. As long as there's Airbnbs, as long as there's house sitting, as long as there's hotels, as long as I can go to another country and like rent a place for $500 a month, I have options. And it has worked out. I feel like it was a radical action, and I'm glad I took it. So I got renters in my property in April, and I'm very much hoping that they renew for next year. Let me tell you something, because it's been nice having a property that I don't have to pay for. And then the last goal was to buy a duplex. So that was the other goal. My goal is to buy a duplex or a multifamily unit that I can rent out and have my tenants cover either all of the mortgage or at least enough of the mortgage that I'm not paying more than $500 a month to live there. I want to live there for free, but I don't want to spend more than $500 a month to live there. And so I have not done that, but the data on that, I'm gonna give you the gap assessment on that. Part of that gap assessment is the market right now is really challenging because interest rates have gone up, but housing prices haven't really gone down very much. And so a lot of the duplexes that I'm seeing, I've seen some really nice duplexes. Actually, my real estate agent in Tulsa just sent me a place 2 days ago that is gorgeous. It's so gorgeous, but it doesn't make sense when I look at what my mortgage payments would be every month versus what the rents are in the place. So for instance, I think the place that he sent me, the mortgage every month would be about $2,600 a month. And it was a 2-bedroom, 2-bathroom duplex on one side, 2-bedroom, 1.5 on the other. And so I would have to charge them $2,600 to stay in a 2-bedroom, 2-bathroom apartment attached to mine in order to cover my mortgage. I would have to charge them at least $2,000 for it. A 3-bedroom, 1-bathroom, single family home with a big backyard and a garage is renting for $1,500. How am I gonna rent this place out for $2,000 at the very least, for $2,000? It just doesn't, the math doesn't map on that. And so I've seen a lot of townhouse opportunities. Some of them have been either too run down. So some of them are giving slumlord, but then some of them are really nice, but given where interest rates are and given where these prices are, they just don't make financial and mathematical sense for what I am trying to accomplish. So that is why I have not purchased a duplex yet. The thing I want to do is hit some of the accomplishments that I've made in finance that were not on my goals list, because remember, we want to give ourselves credit for the things that we've done, even if it wasn't on our goal list, even if it's not a check the box. Okay, so let me tell you some of my accomplishments in finance. Okay, I've got two accomplishments that I want to share that were not on my goal list. One of them is I gave myself a raise simply by changing my work location. So when I left Tulsa, I did not update my address with my company. I left my address in Oklahoma because I was just going to be traveling around. And one day we were talking about our updated remote work policy and how if you are traveling outside of your assigned location, you have to let your manager know where you are, or let our IT guy know where you are, because if you're out of the country, you may not be able to log in and things like that. And I was like, well, I assumed my assigned location was Atlanta because that's what it says in my Outlook. And so I asked, well, isn't my assigned location Atlanta? And they said, no. Should it be? And that sparked an idea. I don't really have a location. I could pick anything I want to. Why would I pick a state with income taxes? So I paid about $200 a month in state income taxes in the state of Oklahoma. And so I sent an email to my HR person and asked them to change my home address and my assigned work location to Florida, a state with zero income taxes. And I just gave myself a raise just by doing that. All right, so that's one of my accomplishments. I felt pretty savvy having done that, okay? Your girl is savvy. And then the last accomplishment is recent. It actually took a while to get to this, but I am very, very so excited about it. Again, one of the reasons why I moved out of my place is because I want to invest in real estate. And one of my big goals was to have an Airbnb or a short-term or mid-term rental. Mid-term rentals is more than just a week or 2 weeks or a couple of days. Your mid-term rentals are gonna rent your place for 2 months to 6 months or something like that. It's not a full year, but it's also not just a couple of weeks. So I have wanted to get into the mid-term and short-term rental market for a while, but I didn't really want to purchase a place for that. And I had been looking at Airbnb arbitrage a lot, which is where someone finds a property that's for rent and they get into an agreement with the owner to get a lease on that property, and then that person, the renter, puts it on Airbnb. And that way you get an Airbnb property without having to have purchased it. And that was one of the things I really wanted to do. And an opportunity became available. I got to take advantage of short and midterm rental arbitrage in my own way. And so I'm actually in Tallahassee right now, working on getting that property up to date so we can get it out there for short-term and midterm rental. I'm so excited about this, y'all, because again, I've been wanting to be a real estate investor for a very long time. I've owned 2 homes myself. My first house I rented out so I could travel the world for a year, and then I sold it back in 2019. Sadly, I wish I had sold it in 2020 when we were at the height of the market. I'd be rich right now. And then I have the house in Tulsa. So this would be the second property in my real estate portfolio, but a little bit different because it's more of a property management agreement and a revenue share on midterm and short-term rentals. So that is an accomplishment that I made this year that was not in my goal list. And so I'm just really, really, really excited about this. Not excited about all the money I'm about to spend, but excited about getting this on the market and making that money back. And the last thing that I typically do in these reviews is decide what are some of the things I learned or realized about myself through these goals. And I already shared some of that when I talked about the behaviors and the gap assessment. So things like realizing I needed to pay my credit card bill every week on Monday. I talked about, how I take money out of savings. But 2 other things I just want to call out that I feel like I learned or realized about myself is that I wasn't thinking very well about my long-term goals. I knew what my long-term goals were, but I wasn't thinking about how I impact those today. And they also felt daunting. So my favorite example is I want to throw a big party for my 50th birthday on some island. I want to rent the thing out, invite my friends, and all I want them to pay for is their flight. I want to pay for everything. I just want people to show up and have a good time. And I estimate that's going to cost about $15,000. I'm not going to rent out the whole island. I'm going to rent out like a whole big compound type of thing. I think it's going to cost about $15,000, right? In my mind, I'm like, man, that's a lot of money. Where am I going to get this money from? How am I going to save up for this? And it occurred to me, girl, that's 5 years away. Take 15,000, divide it by 5, and then divide that by 12. The thing that I realized is I was letting big long-term goals intimidate me versus just breaking them down, which is crazy because I'm a project manager. That is what I do. I take big things and I break them down. The other thing is I wasn't thinking about how my actions today impact that desire 5 years from now, right? So if I, instead of put that $105 away, I spend that $105 for the next 3 months, I'm $315 farther away from that goal that I have. So I am now realizing that I have to look at my long-term goals on a regular basis so it can always be clear to me how the decisions I'm making today affect those long-term goals. And so one thing that I have started doing is on Saturdays when I'm doing my review for the week, I just make notes about my long-term financial goals. It could be a 10-year goal from now. It could be a 15-year goal from now. I just look at whatever strategy I set for that and make a note of whether or not I am following that strategy or what needs to happen for me to get on board for that strategy. Second thing I say is I am a person who is motivated by large achievements. And so to be honest with you, putting $100 away a month or just paying down the minimum on a loan doesn't really motivate me. What motivates me is seeing large numbers. And so one of the things I realize I need to do is when I get bonuses, I need to put a large amount of that bonus into savings because that motivates me to make that number even bigger. When that number is small, I feel like it's insurmountable. Like what I'm trying to get to is, so it's pointless. Like why even bother stashing away $50 here? Even paying off my loan, when I paid down half of that loan balance and saw how much I was starting to chip away at it, it made me more excited. As a matter of fact, my favorite example of this is the debt forgiveness. So a lot of people feel a way about the student loan forgiveness program when in actuality, there are a lot of people who never plan to pay back their student loans. And I'm gonna be honest with you, I happen to be one of them. And me and my friends were talking about this. My best friend said, it feels impossible to pay off this student loan because I've been making payments for years and it hasn't gotten any smaller. I feel the same way. And so in my mind, these loans can go to the grave with me. Come on, baby, let's go. But when I got the news that $20,000 of my loans would get forgiven, which is close to half of my loan, I was then motivated to pay off the rest. So when I can see a huge financial impact, I am very, very motivated. And again, I had no desire to pay off my student loans. I'm gonna keep it real with you. I had no desire to pay off my student loans until I realized that close to half of it was gonna get forgiven. Then it feels like something I can accomplish. And it's the same thing with my savings account. When there's not a lot of money in there, I am a lot more cavalier with taking money out. But if there's a large sum of money in it, I'm like, oh, no, I can't spend it, which is weird, right? It makes no sense. It's like if you don't have a lot of money, that's the money that you're like, oh, no, I can't spend that. But when I have a lot of money, I'm like, oh, no, I like that number. It's pretty. Let's not mess with it. Let's make it bigger. So that is something I realized about myself as well. Okay, the finance one was pretty long. I went through the finance one it took a while. I think the health one will be pretty quick. So let's go through whether or not I reached these health goals. Health goal was to move my body 5 days a week. I'm going to call that in progress and not say done, check the box. I did this a lot though. I did it a lot. I'd say a good portion of the second half of this year, at least, I did this. So I'm gonna call that in progress. And I can actually look at my rings and see that. So I actually did do this. Eat healthy 80% of the time, kinda. I can say that I actually did this most of the year as well. I'd give it 70 to 80% of the year. I don't have anything to track this aside from my waistline. But if you see the trend on the scale, see that I leaned into both of these things and it kind of paid off if you see the trend on the scale. And then the last thing was finish dental work. So camera died, so I'm recording from my phone, but my last health one was, we're talking about dental work. And I had 3 or 4 things that I wanted to do. cosmetically for dental work. So I had a tooth that I got taken out when I was 19 years old that I've been wanting to replace. When I was 20 years old, that I've been wanting to replace for a long time and just never got around to it or didn't feel like I could afford it. I have a bridge that I broke years ago, and then I've been wanting to get veneers because I don't like the shape of my teeth, but my dentists have all recommended that I do something called gum lengthening. If you haven't noticed, I have very big gums. I am gummy, okay? Which is something that I'm self-conscious about. You might not notice it because I laugh a lot. I laugh and show these gums all the time because it is what it is. But it is something that I'm self-conscious about, and so was that missing tooth. And so those were the dental things that I wanted to get taken care of this year. I only did the implant, the replacement here. And I just did this a few weeks ago. And when I look at the assessment, when I look at the data, a lot of this was around my travel, and also having to use quite a bit of my flexible spending account money for my daughter, because again, she was in the hospital this year. And so I had put away money in my flexible spending account to cover this, but I end up having to use it to take care of some medical expenses related to my daughter. And this, I can't say that this was anything that I could have helped or I could have done differently. This was just unforeseen circumstances, so it kind of just is what it is. So those are my health goals. Let's talk about the gap assessment. So I said that I can't say I checked the box on moving my body 5 days a week, and I can't say that I checked the box on eating healthy 80 to 20% of the time. Moving my body 5 days a week, I'm gonna say I did solidly really well at this most of the year. The times that I didn't do well were something happened in my life and I got off balance and it took me a long time to get back. So, case in point, my daughter going into the hospital. The truth is, if I'm honest with myself, if I do an honest assessment, I could have still worked out. My daughter slept most of the day. I could have left and gone to the gym. There was literally a high school down the street that I could have jogged at. My old boxing gym was around the corner from the hospital, or I could have done Peloton workouts right there in her hospital room. She had a huge private room, so I could have done workouts there. But one of the things that I noticed is when something like that happens, when something big happens in my life, like my focus shifts and it's tough for me to get back on track. So it took me maybe 2 or 3 weeks to get back into a habit of working out 5 days. Like it was like 1 day, 2 days, 3 days, and then it took me a while to get back to 5 days. And then I couldn't work out after I got my eyebrows done. So that too put me off track as well. And so I let things get me off track. Like if I had to do a gap assessment, I'd say that one of the things I do often is I let things get me back off track. And when I get off track, it takes me a while to get back on. And on top of that, it's like, I act like my only option is to go to the gym. If I can't go to the gym, I'm just not gonna work out. And so I really, really have to adopt the habit that if I can't go to the gym, I can do something else. I pay for the Peloton app, guys. I can do that anywhere. I can do cardio, I can do body weight exercises. I used to travel with resistance bands and stuff like that. So that's on me, y'all. As far as the eating goes, I, at one point, was doing a really, really good job of planning that 20% out. So like if I knew I was going out with friends on a Saturday, for instance, I would make sure that I eat really well Monday through Friday or Monday through Saturday morning, because I know Saturday night I'm about to cut up and I don't want to feel a way about it. And I'm gonna be honest with you, I loved it. I love when I do it that way. Now, there have been times where, again, things knock me off of my routine and it's hard for me to get back on. So like my daughter going into the hospital is really tough for me to have access to good food. I couldn't cook anything and stuff like that. I eat better when I cook. Here's what I know about myself. Here's what I learned or realized about myself as it relates to health. If I have to eat out, there is a 70 to 80% chance it's not gonna be healthy food. It's gonna be saucy. I don't really eat a lot of fried food, but I love rich foods that have like, I love a heavy sauce. Ooh, I love a sauce. Give me an Alfredo sauce. Give me a white wine sauce. Give me a curry sauce. Come on, okay? So one of the things that I need to make sure that I do is focus on being able to cook or just identifying the healthy options. For instance, this week, I'm not gonna be able to cook at all. So is the answer that I'm just not gonna eat healthy? That can't be the answer, Liv. It just cannot be the answer. And now, one of my accomplishments in the health category that was not on my goals list this year is restarting therapy. And so I actually did restart therapy this year. And it's been a challenge just because I'm in flux, right? And so now I am settled in Florida for a little while. And so I can find a therapist that is licensed in Florida, which I'm excited about. But I am going to check the box and say that this was an accomplishment that was not on my list this year, but it's something that was really important to me this year. And what I learned about myself, which I said a few things already, that I get thrown off my schedule pretty easily and it's hard for me to get back on. Well, not easily. I say when big things happen in my life that prevent me from doing something, it's easy for me to get kicked off my schedule and hard for me to get back on. But the other thing I realized is that deprivation doesn't work for me. Depriving myself of certain things doesn't work for me. I actually like eating healthy, but saying that I am not gonna eat cheese anymore, or I'm not gonna eat bread anymore, or I'm not gonna eat rice anymore is not something that works for me at all. It just does not work for me. I accept that I can't just say, I'm not gonna do this. I'm gonna cut out eating cheese. I'm gonna cut out dairy. I like cheese. I'm not doing that. Nope. I'm not about deprivation. I'm about moderation and making adjustments. For example, I know that if I have more than 3 glasses of wine, I'm gonna end up dehydrated. So I'm gonna drink more water if I'm gonna have this wine so that I don't end up dehydrated. And I'm not gonna drink wine more than 2 nights a week. But I'm not gonna not drink wine. Let's be clear about that. All right, that is my review of finance and health. That was really, really detailed. I feel like I let y'all in. I hope you found this helpful. I hope you got some gems out of this. And feel free to share some of the goals that you met this year in the comments. Let's talk about it. Let's go over it. And stay tuned for the next installment where I am going to go over my review of my career and business goals. There's going to be a series of videos where I am reviewing all 6 categories. We just knocked down 2. If this was helpful, please go ahead and like this video so other people can find it and it can be helpful for them. And don't forget to subscribe and turn on alerts so that you know when I post more videos, including the one that's coming tomorrow about me reviewing my year for my career and business. All right, I'll see y'all in the next video.